Hello and welcome to the Candid Cashflow podcast, episode 22. I'm your host, Ava Fales. Last year this time, which was spring of 2017, for those listening in the future, I was deep in the throes of the fidget spinner craze. I see you rolling your eyes. Hey, those things were cool. I was attracted to them as a tool to help kids with ADHD since I was diagnosed myself at age 10. I discovered them in November of 2016, and I'd spent about 4 months or so looking for a design that I could build myself. I tried all the DIY fidget spinner projects that were everywhere. The first ones I made were built from skateboard bearings with a split ring around them. The split rings worked well. They were nice and heavy, but the design was a little too DIY, They didn't look that great. I saw creators making spinners from everything under the sun. There were wooden designs. I even saw one designer making them from stone. In February, I came across a guy on YouTube who had made some great looking spinners from bicycle derailleur sprockets and bike chain. I had my design. I started stocking up on parts, and before long, I'd become a 2-person fidget spinner factory called Spinful. I spent my Friday nights at the kitchen table building spinner after spinner. They looked great, and they were flying off my eBay account like crazy. Somewhere in the middle of everything, I put up a WordPress site on spinful.net and started blogging and listing my creations using WooCommerce. I was having a blast with the business, and it was making decent money in the height of the craze. Once summer hit, though, and the kids came home from school, the business tanked. In this episode, I'm going to talk about what I did wrong, what I did right, and the lesson that I learned about e-commerce on WordPress. So stay tuned.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. You've been thinking about building an online store, but you were just unsure how to get started. With Shopify, you can sell online, on social media, in-store, or even out of the trunk of your car. No matter what your vision is, Shopify has you covered. Get started with a 14-day free trial. No credit card required. Visit heyoava.com/Shopify.
I actually started Spinful on Shopify, but moved over to WordPress because I know that platform much better. I knew that I could install WooCommerce and have a great control over my SEO, etc. I'd also spotted a great-looking theme that would make my shop look amazing. I ran into several hurdles with the website after the move. The first one was an issue with WooCommerce displaying variables like size or color. With fidget spinners coming in so many colors, I had to be able to differentiate. After a little research showed it was a known issue that didn't have an ETA for getting fixed, I ditched WooCommerce for Ecwid. Ecwid is a lesser-known shopping cart platform. I think they're based in Norway, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but the shop ended up coming together and looking decent. I didn't like Ecwid as well as WooCommerce because I couldn't use the cool theme I'd found, and I didn't have as much control over SEO. It felt second best. I ran with it anyway and made a decent amount of sales. Once WooCommerce got their crap together, I did switch the store back over. All of this happened in about a 4-month period. It was a lot of doing, but not enough selling to be worth the work I was putting in with building spinners, blogging, and running a website. Which brings me to lesson 1. Choose your platform and stick with it. Before you jump into e-commerce with both feet, I suggest that you decide which platform you want to use. Choose one and stick with it. If it's not working, adjust and make it work. Price point was huge for me. With more than a decade of experience with WordPress, I knew that I could build and run my store on WordPress for pretty much nothing more than I was already paying to host my websites that I already had. That $29 per month price tag with Shopify was a deal breaker at that time. In addition to the price tag, I couldn't justify learning a whole new platform, so for me, Shopify's cons outweighed the pros. I was wrong, and we'll discuss that more a little later in this episode. Do your research. If you're new to websites altogether and a store is all you want, then go with Shopify. If you think that you might want more aspects to your web presence in the future, like, say, maybe a membership site, a blog, or something of that nature, I say WordPress all the way. It really depends on you. You can try both platforms for free, so why not get a free trial and see how they feel and which one works best for you. Lesson 2, choose your niche. The fidget spinner niche was super hot. Who doesn't know about them? All the school kids had them. In fact, school kids were the target audience and driving force behind the fad. Which brings me to my first point. Don't choose a niche because it's a fad. The spinners pretty much sold themselves. I made a good amount of money in a very short amount of time. I thought that I had seen past the fad. The phenomena was supported by multiple communities, which included ADHD/autism, the everyday carry community, as well as collectors. It seemed that fidget spinners had captured the interest of kids and adults alike. I mean, here I was, a 40-something-year-old woman, totally immersed in the idea. I was sure that they were a fad that would last, like Rubik's Cube or yo-yos. Maybe they are, but the space I carved for myself completely dried up. Even though my design was unique, it seemed like people were more attracted to the spinners that adhere to a certain design. There were a few hiccups with the parts I was using as well that made people hesitant to buy my spinners. For example, my spinners used an oddball 606 bearing. Even though it was ceramic and top of the line, people preferred the R188 bearings made of steel. They were an inferior bearing, but replacements were more readily available. The bearing also complicated the availability of buttons that screwed into the center of the spinner so you could hold it securely with your fingers. I couldn't find buttons in different materials and colors as could be used with other spinners. I was limited to adapting and using the bushings that came with the sprockets. They looked good enough, but it wasn't the same experience. When you choose your niche, pick it for longevity. Also, choose something that has been around for a while and proven its sales possibilities. There's nothing wrong with jumping on a bandwagon late. By doing so, you come with a lot more insight than the people who jumped on at the beginning. If the niche is viable, there will still be plenty of sales to make. The most important reason to pick a certain niche, though, is because you're passionate about it. I was passionate about fidget spinners because I saw them as a device that could have really helped me as a kid struggling with ADHD. I wanted to tell everyone in the world about them. Even so, it wasn't enough to really make me stick with things when they got slow. It's important to consider all of these lessons if you're considering e-commerce. I'm about to jump in again, and I plan to do things totally different this time and not with the fidget spinners. Lesson 3. Use Instagram. Photography was a huge part of Spinful. If you want to see what I mean, be sure to grab the show notes for this episode at heyoava.com/episode 22. While I built spinners, my partner would take pictures. Then I would take pictures. I took more than 1,000 pictures in just a few months. I bought a mini skateboard at Five Below and carved the Spinful logo into it for use as a photo prop. My image game was hard to beat. I built up a following of 600 people on Instagram doing pretty much nothing except posting images. We would have a Friday night build and picture session. Then I used Grambler to post images for my PC daily. The Spinful Instagram is actually still live at instagram.com/Spinful if you'd like to take a look at it. Definitely use Instagram as part of your e-commerce marketing plan. I had great results and I put in very little effort. People want to see your products. They want to see them being used and depicted in cool ways. Instagram also has a robust advertising platform via Facebook if you decide to invest in your marketing at any point. Social media marketing is the absolute best because you can target multiple demographics rather than just by location like with search engine ads. Lesson 4. Unique isn't always the best approach. I gravitate toward unique. I condone it. I endorse it. Being unique is a huge part of who I am. However, it's not always the best approach. When I decided to sell fidget spinners online, I started selling the same plastic crap that everyone else was selling. Once I found a unique design, though, I felt like I really had something I could get behind. I thought the one-of-a-kind aspect would carry my project further. I actually had other sellers that I networked with ask me why I didn't sell the more mainstream designs. I thought having a unique design would set me apart. Those sellers are still going strong. I truly felt like I had a solid product, but it ended up being a catalyst in the demise of that business in reality. Don't make your product so unique that it's difficult to accessorize or repair. People will steer away from it for more user-friendly options. Lesson 5. Selling online is no easier than selling offline. The venue is just different. You still need capital, although maybe not as much. It's still work, and there's a method to doing it successfully. If you're going to sell online, make sure you are passionate enough to do the learning that goes along with the business. Not only do you have to learn a platform, but you have to learn which methods are working best for building a sustainable business in that niche. If your niche is a good one, then not everyone will be doing it. You may find yourself going through a lot of trial and error to find success, which brings me to the final lesson. Lesson 6, be prepared to fail. There are no guarantees. You can't just throw up a store, plug in all the right stuff, and boom, get rich. It's not a build it and they will come thing when you go into e-commerce. It's a build it and constantly beg them to come via social media and they might kind of deal. You may have to pivot a few times. I will tell you this, if you stick with it and make it work, you will truly have an asset. Let's talk about that for a minute before we wrap up this episode of the Candid Cashflow podcast. The benefits of an e-commerce business. Well, first off, e-commerce is expected to be a $4 trillion a year industry by 2020. The money is really just a benefit of success. E-commerce can mean financial and time freedom for you as an entrepreneur. Personally, I can't think of anything else that I'd rather have. These two concepts really embody the essence of my why. E-commerce allows you to do things that you just can't do with a physical store. The upfront cost is a lot lower. You can also sell out of your store 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without having to hire any extra staff. Not to mention you can sell all over the world rather than just your local town. The benefits go on and on. It's actually hard to find the downside to this business model. Before I close out this episode, I wanted to say that for my new store, I'm going to be using Shopify. While I'm a WordPress fanatic through and through, I really think that Shopify does e-commerce better for physical products. WordPress works well for digital products still, but for physical items, Shopify is built for that and actually does it better. If you want to learn more about Shopify, be sure to check out episode 8 of the Candid Cashflow podcast when we discussed drop shipping using that platform. You can grab the show notes for that episode at heyoava.com/episode 8. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Candid Cashflow podcast. I'm happy you stopped by to listen. I tweaked the format a little today by moving some things around. If you're a regular listener and you like this change, I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to subscribe to the Candid Cashflow podcast, you can do so in your favorite app by visiting heyoava.com/Candid Cashflow. Now on iHeartRadio. I release a new episode each Wednesday. Until next time, turning your passion into cash flow.